Okay, section 1.2 is on imperial systems. It's very similar to 1.1. That was on the metric system. Section 1.2 is on the imperial system. So remember the imperial system, I mentioned this last time, it's a system that's still used in the United States. We do still use it partially in Canada when we talk about our weight, our height, the construction industry, housing. When you talk about how big your house is, you say, oh, it's 1,200 square feet. We don't often use square meters, meter squared. So there are some places, quite a few places in Canada where we use imperial. Many, I guess most places in the world, they definitely don't use the imperial system much at all. But it's definitely part of our life in Canada, so it is important we study it, I suppose. Okay, so some of the important measures when we're dealing with the imperial system are the inch, the foot, the yard, and the mile, going from smallest to biggest. So the inch is a very small distance. And remember last time we talked about a referent? A referent is something you can think of to help you get a sense of how big a distance is. So an inch, a referent for an inch, it's the distance from your thumb tip to the first knuckle. So from the end of your thumb to the first knuckle is about an inch. A foot? Guess what a good referent is for a foot? Come on, people, take a guess. That's right, a foot, the length of your foot. Now, I know we don't all have the same size foot, but probably like a size, I don't know, 10, 11, somewhere around there. It's probably around a foot, somewhere around there. So it'd be close enough to estimate. A yard. A yard is the distance from your nose to the outstretched fingers. So you put one hand out. Go ahead, put your right hand out as far as you can. The distance from your nose to the ends of your right hand, the fingers in your right hand, that is approximately a yard. Now, if you're wondering why are all these references have to do with human body, it's not because I'm obsessed with the human form. It's because that's where these measurements originally originated from. That's how people way back in ancient times used to measure, is using their body parts. And we've probably talked about that at class, and I think I'll just leave it at that. Okay, and finally a mile. This is a very large distance. Example, a referent for that would be 4 times around a track. Remember we talked last time about like a running track. Okay, so once again, just like last time we want to know some conversions, and just like last time, there's 3 really important ones. You don't need to memorize these ones because they will always be given to you on quizzes and tests, but these are the 3 probably, if you did memorize them, would probably save you some time. 1 mile is the same as 1,760 yards. Now, do you already see how the imperial system just is not as easy to use as the metric system? In the metric system, everything was 10 of these or 100 of those or 1,000 of these. Now you got to start remembering numbers like 1,760. How annoying. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. And 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. Okay, so already got 3 different numbers to memorize, 1,760, 3, and 12. However, I did tell you don't have to memorize these. I'll give you these on quizzes and tests. There's 2 others that you might want to also write down if you want. This is all you need. You can get everything you want using these 3, but you can speed things up for yourself if you also write these ones down. If we wanted to switch miles to feet, well, 1 mile is 1,760 yards, and every yard is 3 feet. So what would we do? We'd take the 1,760 yards and we'd multiply by 3, and you'd get 5,280 feet. So 1 mile is 5,280 feet. What if we wanted to know how many inches are in a yard? So 1 yard is how many inches? Well, 1 yard is 3 feet, and each foot is 12 inches. So 3 feet, if 1 foot's 12 inches, 3 feet is 36 inches. 1 yard is 36 inches. Okay, let's go straight on to some examples. Convert the following. Guess what? You get to do these exactly the same way that you did last time using unit analysis. If you don't want to do it this way, don't, but it works every time and your chemistry teacher will love you for it. So we're going to switch 28 feet into inches, so we put times, we put a fraction line. Remember, whatever we want to get rid of, we want to get rid of the feet, we put it on the bottom. What we want is inches, so we put it on the top. I look back at the red box and I ask myself, what's the relationship between feet and inches? Feet and inches. 1 foot, 12 inches. Oh, okay. So 1 foot, or 1 feet, doesn't sound right, but you get the idea. 1 foot is 12 inches. Great. I can cross off the foot and the foot, which leaves us with inches. And all I have to do is multiply 28 times 12. Now, remember last time it was really easy to do all the multiplying and dividing because it was always by 10. And it's really easy, or 100 or 1,000. And it's really easy to multiply by those numbers. 28 times 12 isn't as easy, so you might have to get your calculator out. It's 336 inches. 52 feet, we're going to switch it into yards. So 52 feet times feet on the bottom. We want to switch it to yards, so that goes on the top. Do you remember how many feet are in a yard? If you don't, take a look here. 1 yard is 3 feet. 1 yard, 3 feet. So 1 yard, the 1 goes on top this time, 3 feet. Remember, the 1 isn't always on the bottom. When the 1's on the top, what do we end up doing? We end up going 52 times 1 and then dividing by 3. Okay, let's cross these feet out. I always like to do that. So 52 divided by 3, you're going to get 17.3333333. So what's that mean? 17.3 repeating, you could put. Or you could round it, I suppose, to 17.3, but I'd like an exact answer, like 17.3 repeating. Or what's 0.333333? What's that as a fraction? 17 and a third. There's something good for you to memorize. 0.33333 equals 1/3. So it's that many yards. 17.3 repeating yards or 17 1/3 yards. It's the same answer, right? I'll just circle one of them so you don't get confused. 26,338 feet. We want to switch it into miles. So if you only knew the box, you'd have to do it in 2 steps. You'd first of all have to switch feet to yards, and then you'd have to switch yards to miles. However, if you know this, and you do know it because I will give it to you, you could just use this right here. 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Am I going to remember that by the time I get to it? 1 mile. Okay, first of all, let's set it up. Feet on the bottom. We want to switch feet to miles. And we just said that 1 mile was 5,280 feet. It's not written very well there, but cross out the feet. So what we have to do is we have to go 26,338 times 1, and then divide by 5,280. And if you do that, you almost get 5. You get like 4.99 miles. Close enough that you could almost call it 5 miles. For all intents and purposes, it's 5 miles. Okay, next. 2.5 miles equals how many inches? Now, I know most of you know how you would deal with this. 2.5, okay, I'll just put 2.5. Like that, right? 2.5 miles. But I want to show you, sometimes you have fractions that aren't so easy to switch to decimals. Like what if you had something like 2 and 1/7? That'd be much harder to switch to a decimal. So I want to show you how you can do this question by keeping it as a fraction. So what I would do, 2.5, I would switch that into an improper fraction, or a top-heavy fraction, if you like. The bigger top number is bigger than the small number. Remember how to do that? 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, so you get 5/2. 2.5 is the same as 5/2 miles. So if we want to switch that, we do the same thing we did right here. I write 5/2 miles. Notice it's a little different because we have a denominator here, but that's fine, it'll still work. Times, now I want to switch miles to inches. This is one we don't have a conversion for, miles to inches, I don't think. No, we don't. We have yards to inches, we have miles to feet. So what you might want to do is first of all switch your miles to feet by using this one, and then switch your feet to inches using the bottom one here. So miles to feet I think we should do first. Okay, so we want to first of all switch it from miles to feet, and we know that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. We just did that in the last question. And then we want to multiply it. So what that does is that gets rid of the miles. We've got it to feet. That says feet, believe it or not. And then what we want to do is we want to get rid of the feet and switch them into inches. And what we know is 1 foot is 12 inches. And we can again get rid of the feet, so we're left with inches, and that's what we want. So when you do this question, what you have to do is 5 divided by 2, which gets you back to the 2.5. 5 divided by 2 times 5,280 divided by 1 does nothing, times 12 and divided by 1 equals nothing. Order doesn't matter when you multiply and divide, so what you might want to do is 5 times 5,280 times 12 divided by 2. And you're done. You don't need to divide by 1 and divide by 1 because dividing by 1 doesn't change anything. Anyway, whichever way you do it, you will end up with 158,400 inches. That's a lot of inches. And yes, we could have gotten exactly the same answer if instead of putting 5 over 2, we'd put 2.5. It would still work. You'd go 2.5 times 5,280 times 12, and you get the same answer. I just wanted to show you how you can deal with fractions by making them improper or top-heavy fractions like that. Okay, 7 miles, 1,200 yards, and we want to switch it to feet. Oh, we got two things here. Like it's 7 miles, and it's not quite 8 miles because there's only 1,200 yards, and we want to switch this to feet. You know what to do? Well, you better switch the 7 miles into feet, and you better also switch the 1,200 yards into feet. You got to switch both of these things into feet and then add them together. So 7 miles, if we switch that, we have miles on the bottom, feet on top. How many feet are in a mile? 5,280. We've done that a bunch of times. 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Get rid of the miles. You're left with the feet that you want. And when you multiply that, you get 36,960. And then 1,200 yards, we want to get rid of the yards and switch that into feet. And we know that 1 yard is 3 feet. Goodbye yards, left with feet, which is great. If you multiply that, you get 3,600 feet. So this is feet, this is feet. What do you do with both of those? You add them together. And if you add those together, you're going to get 40,560 feet. That's your final answer. Okay, last one. I don't think they have any like this in your book, which is strange. I know in the other textbooks they do, so I'll do one question like this. This question's asking you, change 51 inches into a certain amount of yards, a certain amount of feet, and a certain amount of inches. It's not asking you to switch 51 inches into yards, and then a second question, switch 51 inches into feet, and then a third question, switch 51 inches into inches. No, this is one question here. It's asking, change this into as many yards as you can, then switch it into as many feet as you can, like the leftover into as many feet as you can, and then the leftover into as many inches as you can. Alright, sounds a little confusing. So here's what you do. You start with the inches, 51 inches, and we want to change it just into the biggest thing, which is yards. Whoops. Inches goes on the bottom because we're getting rid of that. Yards go on the top. And we know that 1 yard, if you look back at our very bottom here, 1 yard is 36 inches. So let's use that. Save us a step. 1 yard is 36 inches. So that gets rid of the inches, and when we multiply, we would be doing 51 times 1 and then divide by 36, and if you do that, you get 1.41666666. The 6 repeats. Okay, now this is in yards. So what that means, I'm just going to put this big crazy bracket here. What that means is the most yards, the most complete yards you can get out of 51 inches is 1. You can only get 1 complete yard out of there. So part of our answer is going to be 1 yard. I'll put it over here as well. 1 yard. Okay, well we've now taken that 1 yard and put it over here. So how much is left here? What's left is 0.41666 repeating yards. So in other words, what we still have to deal with is 0.416 repeating yards. Don't round it. Don't make this 0.4 and keep going. Your answer will go at least 3 or 4 decimal places. Okay, so I'm going to go 0.4166 or something like that. We're going to switch the yards now into the next one, which is feet. We want to know how many feet can we get out of 0.41666 yards. So 0.4166 yards. We put yards in the bottom. We put feet on top. We know that 1 yard is 3 feet. So we multiply this answer, 0.41666 times 3. And when you do that, you'll get 1.25 feet. Of course, these have canceled out. 1.25 feet. So the most number of feet, complete numbers of feet, you can get out of 0.416 yards is 1. So again, we only have 1 foot. So 1 yard, 1 foot. Now, if we take the 1 foot out, how many feet are we left with? We're left with 0.25 feet. Got to switch that into inches. So feet goes on the bottom, inches on top. 1 foot's 12 inches. we're good to go. We're going to multiply. So we're multiplying 0.25 times 12, and when you do that, it works out perfectly into 3 inches. So you have 3 inches left. So our final answer is 51 inches is the same as 1 yard, 1 foot, and 3 inches. Right? Again, that's not 3 different questions. That's one question. That's one answer of what 51 inches is equal to. Okay, as I said, I don't think there are any questions like that in your workbook, but maybe I'll throw 1 or 2 of those on your quizzes and tests, because you know, and I know, that you love a challenge. Good for you, people. Keep up the good work.